So we're recording ourselves making a chart so that we can edit the code to be able to create these charts automatically. So I am on the developer tab, record macro, called it make chart, put a hotkey on it, and now we're ready to start recording. I've already got this selected. I've got this discontiguous range selected. And so I'm just going to choose insert and then choose this two-dimensional column chart. And that has given me a chart here. I'm just going to record myself doing a couple of things. I'm going to move the chart and I'm going to resize the chart just so I get that code recorded, because those are things I'm going to want to do. I'm going to kind of set the position and change the size of this chart. And we're going to make it so that we can generate multiple charts kind of easily, like select the line that we want the chart for and then generate the chart. And we'll have it kind of get laid in here right next to the old one, have it automatically put the chart title on. But we'll do all that through code. So now I'm ready to stop recording. So back to my developer tab, stop recording. And I'm going to go take a look at my code. So bring up my code window, Alt F11. Now that every time when I start recording, after I've opened up the workbook and start recording, it's going to make a new module. So I've got module 1 where I did all of my code from the last time we were on this workbook. And we'll just use module 2 for our charts. In fact, maybe I'll go ahead and I'll name this one. So I'll name the module. So I've got it selected here. And for properties, there's only one name. There's only one property for a module, and that's the name. So I'm just going to change this one to mod_chart. So this is my module that I'm keeping my chart making code together for. It's not critical to name that, but as soon as I got more than one module, it kind of makes sense to give it some kind of label so I know what's going on in each of these different modules. Okay, so let's take a look at make chart here. So make chart says active sheet shapes chart add chart to. Ooh, this is kind of an involved line. Make this just a little bit bigger. I love this. It couldn't quite fit this line on, it decided I had to break this line. So what did it do? It put 2 characters on the end of this so that it could, put 1 character on the next line. That's crazy. You go ahead and backspace that off and get it up on the line that it belongs with. And I think I'm going to do the same thing down here for this other line that's been broken onto 2 lines and just get those up on the same line. Okay, so active sheet, that's going to refer to whatever sheet is active. It's a reference to a particular worksheet. And now here's the interesting thing is we are going to add to our active sheet, we're going to add to a collection called shapes. Now, I don't think we've dealt with shapes yet. I think we did. I think we did an example with shapes, but it was a while ago. And the idea here is that I can put things onto this. I can put things on that, that don't go in a cell, but they kind of sit on the page. For instance, I can come to the insert shapes. I can just put literally just a shape, like a square, put a square here onto this worksheet. That now goes in the shapes collection. And so the interesting thing, the really interesting thing to me here is that the add chart method is a method, not of the worksheet, but it's a method of the shapes collection. So we're saying, hey, we want to add a chart. And by the way, that's going to be a method of the shapes collection. And we're going to tell it I forget what 201 means. So it's going to be a clustered column chart, and 201 means something else, but it's going to make that same kind of chart that we just recorded ourselves making. Now here's the interesting thing is it is then going to, so this, calling this method is going to build the chart, and then it's going to do something else so that we can say this dot select at the end. So after it builds this chart, what does this method do? Okay, so it builds, that's exactly what it does. But this method up here, this method builds the chart, and then it returns a reference to the chart that it just built so that we can call the select method on it. So I think I'm going to want to, and that's kind of important here because when I make a new chart, it becomes active, and then all the rest of this is happening based on whichever chart is active. So we're going to set the source data of this and so forth. So what I'd like to do is I would like to be a little more systematic about this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my comments here. And I'm going to create a variable. So let me dim, and I'm going to call this SHP as a shape. So this add chart to method is going to return a reference to some kind of object. But it's going, kind of the odd thing here is it's not going to return a reference to the chart. It's going to return a reference to the shape that holds the chart. So here's kind of the strange thing about charts. Charts do not go directly onto the worksheet. Charts go into a shape, and the shape goes on the worksheet. We use the shape to control where the chart goes and how big the chart is. But then the shape is going to hold the chart object that we use to manipulate for our, like, what data is going to be on it and so forth. And so let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and declare two variables, one called shape and one called chart, CHRT, as a chart. Because I want to make it clear when I'm in my code, when I'm manipulating the shape that holds the chart and when I'm manipulating the chart directly. Okay, so active sheet, shapes, add chart, this all looks pretty good, but I don't want to select it. So let me get rid of the select. And I just want to capture the reference. So this is going to send back a reference to the shape that it created. And it kind of makes sense that it's going to return a reference to a shape because I am calling a method of the shape collection after the shapes collection after all. So this is kind of a complex thing. It's going to create a shape and a chart and return a reference to the shape that holds the chart. So let me just set SHP equal to this. So this now will generate that chart, and I will capture the reference to the shape that the chart is in right here. Now, before I run this code, I just kind of want to take a peek here. I should have two shapes in my shapes collection, because I put this kind of regular rectangle here, and I've got the shape that was created for this one. So let me just come to my immediate window and active sheet.shapes.count. That tells me I've got 3. Why do I have 3? I got one hiding down here somewhere. I've got 3 shapes. Truth is, I was expecting to see 2 there. So let's see, shapes sub 1. Now shapes have a name. So I'm going to look at, so the name of the first chart, the first shape there is chart 1. The name of the second one is rectangle 3. There's 3 of them. What's the name of the third one? Oh, drop down 2. So is this becomes a shape as well? Oh, interesting. Okay, so it looks like this must be a shape here as well. All right, so I don't really want this rectangle here, just kind of showing that that is a shape in that collection. And so now shape 2 should be the drop down, and shape 1 should be that chart. Okay. So at this point, I've changed this line to say create the shape, don't activate it, or create the chart in the shape, don't activate it, just put it here for me. Now, this one is going to be setting the source of that. And the truth is, I think that if I select the cells that I want to have building that data first, I think I won't have to even worry about it. I think it's going to pick up the source range here. So maybe what I'm going to do is just put a stop in right here. And I'm going to see what that creates. I'm going to come and delete this chart. And so I've just got this one line is the only line that's really executing here. So I'm getting ready to run this. Control-Shift-C will run this procedure for me. So let me, again, select the data. We'll have to write code to select the data we're interested in. And then I'll press Control-Shift-C. And let's see what that has done. Yeah, so it's already built that with the data in it. So it recorded, it was kind of nice to say, listen, if you want to write code that's going to specify what's the data for this chart, here's the statement to do it. But what we're going to do is we're going to select the range that has the data in it and then build the chart, and it will automatically come in. So I'm not going to need this line at all. I'll just delete that line. Now, if we look at this one, this is saying on the active sheet, refer to the shapes collection. And now we're talking about chart 2. Oh boy, that's going to be a problem with this code. Why is that a problem? I deleted chart 2, and I'm now on to chart 4. And so it records this name. This was the name that the chart it made, and then it's using that to adjust the left and the top of it. But that name is going to be a problem. Well, the good news is this is going to get us a reference to the shape that holds the chart, right? And so changing the top and the left position of that chart is something that we do with the shape. Well, good news, we collected a reference to the shape that got created right here. It doesn't matter what it's called. We have a direct reference to it. So let's do this. I'm just going to go ahead and I'll set the top to like, I don't know, 10. So here, I'm just going to say SHP. Now, when I moved that chart, I just kind of moved it to the left a little bit. And so there's a method called increment left. So it's changing how far the left of that chart is. But I can set the left directly. So let's set the shape. In fact, I'm not quite sure. Okay, yeah, so the interesting place is I'm going to want this chart to go. Let's do the top first. The top's going to be simpler than the left. So I'm going to say SHP dot top equals, I'll just say it like 10. I'm not even sure what these units are or if these units have names. They're not pixels because I can zoom into the worksheet and zoom out, and the size of this unit changes in terms of pixels. So it's just some measurement that it gives me some reference on the worksheet. So I don't need to increment the top because I'm setting the top there. And I should be able to kind of see that happen as I step through and watch that line. So let me just kind of move my chart over so it's visible here. And I will do Shift F8 to kind of step through, and we should see that chart just pop up to 10, whatever units those are from the top. Now, positioning the left of it is going to be a little bit more difficult. In fact, why don't we, I'm going to make, let's see, left. Yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and refer to the left. Now, where do I want this? Someone talked to me about where I want this chart to go. So this is the first chart I'm making. I want it to go, kind of close to the top of the worksheet. Ultimately, when I make another chart, I'm going to want it to come right below it. But the first one is going to come here, and we'll have to add some logic to know whether we're doing the first one or not the first one. But where do I want this to go? Where do I want the left of this chart to go? Like, describe to me where I want the left of it to go. Don't like guess at the number, but where should it go? Yeah, I don't want to overwrite the data. I want to be able to see the data and see the chart. And so I've got to figure out, and the trouble is, I don't know how many columns I'm going to have here. And I don't know how wide those columns are going to be because our code resizes these columns to kind of shrink them down to get rid of extra space. That's why our Washington column is wider than our Utah or Davis columns. So I'm going to want to figure out what my last column is, which I think we're going to have to do anyway to be able to get our data selected. So let's go ahead and figure out what the last column is. We'll position the chart, and then we'll work on selecting the data automatically. So let me make a new variable. I'll call it last call as an integer. And any thoughts now on how I should figure out which column is the last column to work with? Give me a don't have to tell me the VBA code, but kind of give me an algorithm to figure out what the last column is. Go ahead. So yeah, I think we're going to have, let's see. I'm not sure that we're always going to have something here, but I am sure that we're always going to be here. So I'll go to A3, and then do like a control right arrow, that will get me to that column. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so I've got last column here. So maybe I'll do this as the very first thing. I'm just going to say my active sheet. In fact, I think just to make my code a little bit lighter, I'm going to make a variable called S to refer to my sheet. So dim S as a worksheet, and I will set S equal to at the active sheet. So now anywhere I've got active sheet, I can just use S to refer to that, and that will be just make my code a little bit shorter. Okay, so I'm going to say that my last column is going to be equal to s.cells. Actually, I can just do range A3. Dot end XL to right. That will refer to that. That'll refer to that cell that has the last data in it, and I'm going to ask for the column of that. Okay, well, the good news is, let me just go ahead and run the code up to there again. Shift F8. So I now have a value in last call. So my last column is 5. And I want this to be a little bit to the right of where that last column ends. So the good news here is that if I say columns, can I ask the column what its left is? Yeah. So I can ask that column what its left is, but the column does not have a right property. Just it has a left and it has a width. So I could say column 5's left plus column 5's width, which is going to give me the same number as column number 6's left. So that's going to be right at the rightmost edge of column number 5. And I think I don't want to put it right against that cell. I want to give it just a little bit of room over. So let's do this. Let me make a constant. I'll call it margin. Constant margin equals 10. Now, instead of setting the top to 10, let me set the top to margin. And I'm going to set the left. So shp dot left is going to be equal to columns. The column I'm after is my last call plus 1 dot left. That'll tell me what the left of that column is, plus the margin. Oh, it should be last call plus 1. I'll just execute that line, F8. And now that's moved it right over there, kind of move it somewhere else so we can see it move. Changing the left here, F8. So it moves it right over there, just a little bit past where that page starts. So that looks pretty good. So now if I was to run this again, it would make a new chart and it would put it like, right up there wherever that top goes as well. Okay, any questions on what we've done so far? So kind of the strange thing here is that the chart goes into a shape and the shape is what we do to position it. Looks like we set the width here as well. So we change the increment, and let me just go ahead and make a couple more constants here. Const width equals, why don't we say 400, and const height equals 300. Okay, so we're saying the top and the left, shp dot width equals width, shp dot height equals height. And so now that should adjust that to be, should change the width and the height, although it's probably pretty close. It's pretty close to what that currently is. So we'll just run through those. Change the width a little bit, change the height a little bit. Okay, so I think we've done pretty good at kind of controlling where this chart's going to go, how big it's going to be. So next time I run this, it's going to make another chart of exactly the same size. But I think we got to first worry about selecting the data. So before we create the chart, let's go ahead and select the data that we want active for the chart. And I think this is going to introduce us to something new that we haven't talked about before. I don't think we've done discontiguous ranges. Okay, so let me go ahead and just make a variable. I'm going to make a range variable just called chart data. Dim chart data as a range. Let me set chart data equal to, all right. Now I would like to be able to figure out how to get, I need this top section selected first. Whew. Well, it's always going to start in B1. And it's always going to end in row 2, whatever my last column is. So I think I can use just a range, a multi-cell range to get at that. Let me just go ahead and say range. And let me start with cells, row number. Actually, I'll just start with range. B1. And I'm going to end in cells, row number 2, column number 5. And let's just print the address of that. I'll comment that out so I can run this line up here. So B1 to E2, is that what I'm after? Yeah, B1 to E2. Okay, so using a multi-cell range is going to get me pretty close there. So let me go ahead and just assign that to my chart data. Now, I don't want to have column 5 hard-coded here. What do I want instead? What's that? Yeah, last column. So we're figuring out last column. And so we've already calculated that. So just take last call and plug that in here. And so at this point, I'm just going to move my stop up here. And I'll delete this chart. Okay, so we run the code here. And F5, okay. So now I should be able to just ask what chart data is. Yeah, so the address, so chart data is successfully bound on to that range, E1 to E2. But I've got to do a little bit more than that because I've got to pick up, now it's not enough just to refer to this, I'm going to need one of these as well. And so the chart row that I'm after is going to be where the active cell is. So that's how the user is going to tell us what they want to chart. They're going to select that row. So kind of build up to that. We make another variable here called chart row, or I'll call it, let's call it row as a long integer. And let's say that row equals my active cell dot row. So I'll just read the row off of the active cell. And now what I want to do is I want to take chart data. I've already set it to this one range. And now I want to add another range into it to be a multi-cell range, like a multi-cell discontiguous range. And so I'm going to set chart data equal to something else. I'm going to set chart data equal to the union. So union is a method that allows me to just union two ranges together. And so because I'm trying to add another range onto chart data, I'm just going to say, all right, I want chart data now to equal the union of what it currently is and some other range. Well, this is also going to be a multi-cell range. So let me plug in here another call to the range method where I'm going to supply a starting cell and an ending cell. My starting cell is going to be cells, row number, row, column number 2. So whichever row was the active cell, and this range is going to start in column number 2. That's where it's going to start. It's going to end in row number row, column number last call. And so I've already bound chart data onto the one I've defined here, but now I'm just going to add another kind of range into that range. Ooh, maybe I'm not going to. I probably haven't defined row yet. So row hasn't been set. So let me just tell row to be 15. And run that. Okay, so now if I ask what my chart data's address is, I now have this discontiguous range. B1 to E, B1 to E2. Oh yeah, E2, that's right. B1 to E2, and then B15 to E15. So at this point, I'm ready to select that data. So chart data dot select. And I'll run that with just F8. So now we can see that I've got that selected. So from here, if I run the rest of my code, it should build that chart based on that data and then put it into place and size it the way that I want it sized. So I'll run that the rest of the way out and did a pretty good job. Built it here based on the data that we had. Is that right? Washington is the largest one on this. Oh yeah, so this is % of female population. It makes it really look like it's different, but it's between 50.4 and 49.1. So not the most faithful of charts in this case. Okay, based on what we've done quite a bit so far. Just show me how you're feeling about this stuff so far. 5, 5, 4, 5, 5, 5, 4. Okay, good. All right, now, next thing I think I want to do is I want to bring and put like whatever label is in column A, I want to make that the title of the chart. I remember the first time I was trying to figure out what that was. Just kind of guess. What do you think the property of like that? What property of the chart is going to be the title? If you were to guess at it, what would you say? I would think it was title. In fact, when I came here, I thought it's got to be title. So I just wrote it with title, and that was not it. There's no title property. And then I thought, you know what? I'm gonna track this down. I'm not going to Google it. It's kind of a matter of pride. I'm going to figure out what it was. And it took me like 20 minutes to figure it out because it's a really strange name. And here it is. We've got this positioned right here. I'm going to go ahead now and set the title. Okay, so I have, at this point, I've got the shape. I've captured my shape right here. What I would like to do is I would also like to get a separate reference just to the chart object. The truth is I could probably get away without this variable because it's not very complex. Let me just go ahead and do it right here. After I've got that shape that's made the chart, I'm going to set my chart variable equal to my shape. And that shape variable has a property called chart. And so if a shape has a chart in it, then the chart property will just be a reference to that chart. So now I should be able to say chrt dot, and the title is called chart title. So the chart title, and if you think you're ready to just like add something onto it to say it's going to be, you know, the title. That's no good because the chart title actually is an object that has lots of properties. And I think it has a text property, which would be the one that I think makes most sense. So the chart objects, its chart title, and then it has a property called text, which I can then set to something. So let me go ahead and just run this code again. Should have made one. And yeah, so I now have successfully changed that. I just want to read it now off of the cell. So instead of having that hard coded, we're just going to make that to be cells, row, column number 1, and run that again. And I got the wrong. Oh, I probably had that row selected. That's bad data. So let me select a row down here. Control Shift C. That looks better. So it selected the right set of data, and it put that label then as the title of the chart. Excellent. We are moving right along. Oh, and that probably should refer to the value of that. By not saying value, it assumes I mean the value, but I'd like to have it in there, VAL. Now, how many charts do I have at this point? ActiveSheet.shapes.count. So I think I'm building them right on top of each other. I've got 5 of them. So I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to give myself, maybe I'm just using this for development. Maybe I'll give the user some way to be able to call this, but I'd like something to be able to get rid of all the charts. Just kind of wipe the charts off so I can start again. And so I'll make another sub procedure down here just called clear charts. Now, I have a couple of options here. I could iterate across all of the shapes and then check to see which shapes have a chart, because a shape has, let's do ActiveSheet.shapes number 1. It has a has chart property, which is just Boolean. So it's going to give me either -1 or 0, which is true or false. Let me just convert this to Boolean. CBOOL. And so that's telling me that that shape has a chart. So if I've got lots of other shapes on the sheet, someone puts other shapes in there, I don't want to delete those shapes. I only want to delete the shapes that are charts. And so I could iterate across all of the shapes, check to see if that shape has a chart, and if so, go ahead and delete it. But there's another collection here that can be really handy, and it's called chart objects. So let me do ActiveSheet.chartObjects.count. So I've got 4 chart objects on here right now. And that is the collection of shapes that hold charts. I think it may pass through a couple of other properties as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I think this is going to work. If not, we'll have to make it a little more complicated. Let's do a for each loop. So for each loop, I'll need some kind of control variable, dim chrt as an object for each chrt in ActiveSheet chart objects, the collection of all the chart objects on that sheet. Next, and all I want to do is delete it, chrt.delete. It's a little bit strange to me to say I'm going to kind of iterate through this collection of objects and delete them, because as soon as I delete the first one, I'm worried that it might shift kind of where the rest of them are located in memory. So I'm going to run this, and if it works, great. If not, we'll have to just make the code a little bit more, only slightly more complicated. Looks like that worked just fine, and it blew away all the charts that I have. So now I can kind of run this as often as I want. Control-Shift-C, do another one, Control-Shift-C. Ultimately, we want to get them so they're not stacking on top of each other, but I don't have to worry about being able to get rid of these because I've got now a method that will just go and delete them all. But this introduces us to this other collection called chart objects. That's just the shapes with charts.
Could you alternatively select each one and then hit the delete key. Like write code to active sheet chart objects.
.select and then like send the delete key to the operating system. Totally could. So it's kind of a weird thing to say is that I actually want to tell Excel to put the delete key onto the keyboard buffer to say behave as if the user just hit the delete key. The reason that's dangerous is because I don't get to pass that delete key to Excel or to the worksheet. I pass that to the operating system, and the operating system then passes it to whichever is the active application. So if that code is in the process of running and something happens to change Excel from being the active application, it'll send that delete key to something else. So yeah, so we could do that. Alternatively, we could select it and then just say whichever thing is active, call the delete method on whichever is active. That would be a little bit safer. But I think it's a little cleaner just to say go across that set and delete them. You know, iterate across that each object in that set and call its delete method. Okay. Whew. So I think our next step is going to be to make it so that the first chart goes at the top and the next one figures out a different top to go to. So how could I tell, like, let's see, here's where we're setting the top right here. So looking when I'm right here, how can I tell if this is the first chart or a subsequent chart on this? You know, what object could I ask to find out if this is the first chart? Go ahead. So the count, so this is after I've created it. So the count, if it's the first one, the count would be 1. But yeah, really, it's a really good approach. Yeah, so let's just do this. Let's just say if s.chartObjects.count equals 1, then we'll do something. Otherwise, we'll do something else. Whew. So if it's 1, our top is going to go to the margin, and our left is going to go, you know, right to the left of that. If it's not 1, if it's something other than 1, we want the top to be something else. What do we want the top to be? So we're not going to set it to the margin. Where do we want to put it? Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So we say wherever we are, we want to put it right below the last one that we placed. Yeah, I like it. Okay, so let's go ahead and leave margin there. M-A-R-G-I-N. And let's add on to that. Okay, so I want to look at s.chartObjects. And I want to look at the last one placed, which is going to be the count minus 1. So this expression here is going to refer to not the one that I just placed, but the one before it. And so here, if chart objects is 1, if there's only 1, I know where to place it. If there's more than 1, then I'm going to put the top equal to the margin plus the top of the most recently placed one. Plus, and let's do plus. So we actually have height, so we don't have to ask it what the height is because we were setting the heights. So we've calculated that height to be what is it, 300. So now the top of the next one is going to say, hey, wherever the top of the last one was, plus the height of the last one, plus a little bit of margin, and that should get it to go then right down below. Oof, I like it. I'm going to do one more thing kind of when I'm done this, just so my code will run a little bit better. Kind of the very last thing here, I'm going to set to a different cell to be active. So I'm going to say cells, whichever row I was on before, +1. So I'm going to be one row down, and I'm going to select column 1. I'll just select that. So this will be nice now, because when I build a chart with Control-Shift-C, it'll make it there, but it's now moved me down to the next one to make the next chart. And it's now putting it down below. Now, why it's a little bit off to the right? Oh, we haven't changed the left yet. So let's go ahead and do that. Clear off my charts. And my left, I want the left in this case to be exactly the same as the one that was just most recently done. So I'm going to set the left equal to whatever the left of the last chart was. Oh, I like it. So now I should just be able to press Control-Shift-C multiple times. It should just lay in a bunch of charts, all the same size, nicely positioned. Maybe I should zoom out a bit. Nice. Kind of going through and putting those charts. Now, I probably don't want to keep going down. Looks like I want to put about 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in. And then once I get, once I'm trying to place the 5th one, it looks like I need to move over and kind of start again. I don't want to keep going down. I kind of like to kind of fill this space in to kind of make better use of the shape of my web page, or of my worksheet page. Oh boy, how am I going to do that? How could I tell if it was the 5th or the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's the 5th or the 9th or the, what would the next one be? Anyway, yeah. So once I've gotten past the bottom there, I'd like something to be able to know if I was, just past the bottom. Man. Any thoughts? I'm thinking that mod would help here. So let's see, if I take, so I've just, at this point, I will have created the one that we haven't placed yet. It's going to be past it. So what would that be? I don't know. So maybe before I place the left of it here, in fact, I'm going to come in here and inside. If it's not the first one, if it's the first one, we know exactly where it goes. It's not the first one, it'll be a little more complex. And we're going to want to know if it's a multiple of 4. I think it's going to be this. If the number of our chart objects -1. So if I've got 5 chart objects, I want to know that one less than that, mod 4 equals 0. Whoops, wrong language. No parentheses needed for the if statement here. Mod is going to happen early, so I'm going to bind this together. So when I'm creating the 5th chart, then this expression will be 4, and 4 mod 4 is going to be 0. If that's the case, I want to behave some way. Otherwise, I'm going to behave the way we've been behaving. How do I want to behave if I'm placing that 5th chart? If I'm placing that 5th chart, the top is going to come right back up to the top margin. But my left now isn't going to be the same as the last one. My left is going to be whatever the left of the last one was, plus my width, plus my margin. So I placed, the last one I placed here was number 4. I want this one to go up to the top, which it will here with setting this to margin. And I want the left to be the left of the last placed one, plus the width of the chart, plus the margin to give me a little bit of space between it. I think that's going to work. Whew. Let me clear off my charts and try it again. Control-Shift-C. Yeah, nice. That's a whole lot of charts. And the really nice thing now about this is that I can change the chart and, maybe even, copy this to a new sheet, delete the charts off, and you have the charts for these counties in Utah, select different counties, lay in a whole different set of charts. And I've got, ready to kind of compare things. How did I do that in 20 minutes less than I did the last time I taught this? Have I forgotten something major? Did I just go through it way too fast? Questions here? That was all I had to teach today. Yeah, it's like, it's not the end of the world to dismiss class early. We don't want to do it every day. Is there anything else to do that's interesting with charts or placing charts? We got the title in there. I think it's pretty good. All right, well, if you have questions on anything else, I'll hang around for a little while. Otherwise, we'll call it good for there. Class dismissed.
Can I ask you a question? I've got, for some reason, I can't seem to get the, like when I make the charts, they're not placing underneath each other, even though I've got the chart object chart equals 1, then this else, then I've got the shape dot
So
top.
take a look at my code.
Yeah.
So if the one less than the chart count mod 4 is 0, then where we need to go back to the top. So you've got that going to the top margin. You've got that piece in the top. Under that condition, you're setting it to margin.
Shape dot top. Oh, wait, no, I don't have that.
That's not the problem.
Oh, no, I have that.
So it's going to be, this is the line that we're looking at. So it's an else. That's when that happens.
Yeah.
That's the line that's relevant to this part of the problem.
Yeah, so there's the else.
So do this, put a breakpoint on that line. Nope, I'm gonna go right down to
This one.
that. No, one more below the else.
Okay.
So that means when you're right in that else. And then go ahead and delete all your charts. Shouldn't hit it the first time, but you should hit it the second time. Okay, good. So you're trying to set the top equal to margin plus chart objects. Go to the right. Let's see what that line actually says. So either scroll over to the right or the right.
Okay, this is really something. It's like one scroll.
So see, you're setting it to the top instead of to the left.
Oh, so that goes dot left.
That should be the left.
Wait, but yours it says
no,
dot top, right?
This is the top. So we're setting
Because we're at the top, and then we add the height,
so
and then the
copy that part right there.
the whole line or the end.
H-E-I-G-H-T. Copy that whole thing. Everything to the right of that of the equals sign.
Of the equal sign. Okay.
And then just go to your immediate window, put a question mark and paste that in. Because that's the value, that's where it's going to put it. That looks about right. So go ahead and run it and see what happens. Like, no, I'm sorry, but with F8.
Yeah.
Okay, the top looks good.
Okay, wait, what the heck? Oh, it's because I have these down here.
Ah, that was-
Yeah, okay, yep, okay, that's. Okay. That's funny. Okay.
that's the real value of stepping through it, kind of watch it happen. Nice.